Painting track fairings is every track racer's nightmare, because nothing screams, "I'm definitely going to crash this weekend," like spending hours sanding, priming, and painting a set of race fairings that are destined to slide down turn 5 on your first outing. But the race fan in me just can't run uncool looking fairings. It's simply a matter of principle. If I'm going to throw the bike down the track, it's going down the track in style, baby.
Alright, hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Steve Sleepy, and today we're going to start prepping, and I'm going to go over some of the things that I bought, and I'm getting ready to paint my race fairings. Now, when I got this second bike, and I was really stoked about the fairings that came on it, they're kind of special and they're pretty cool, I was debating whether or not I was going to rattle can them and or maybe, get some automotive paint and paint properly, because I have painted a lot of things in the past, and I did some math. So with my discount at Summit, which I know is kind of unfair, but I do work there, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I was able to get all my actual automotive paint supplies for about the same price that it would cost me to buy rattle cans. Because even when you rattle can a bike, you still have to 2K clear coat it, and that stuff gets expensive. So at the end of the day, I could probably paint 3 bikes with all the automotive paint I bought for the same amount that I was going to buy rattle cans. So keep that in mind. We're going to go over the processes and stuff, and actually the way I do it, when you buy the equipment, it's really inexpensive, especially if you find it on Marketplace and it can be used a million times over and over, no compressor needed, etc. So it becomes kind of convenient and pretty easy to paint with automotive paints. So we're going to get into that, but before I do, the UPS just dropped this box off. I'm pretty stoked about it. This is like my first time ever buying these, and you guys get to see it. So, what did I get? Dun, da, da, da. Track Day Slicks. Yeah, buddy. So these literally are Metzler Track Day Slicks, TD Slick. And they supposedly do not need tire warmers. They heat up pretty quickly. They're basically like a really high-end street tire compound, a little stickier, and they're made for the track. All the reviews I saw gave them really high ratings, and they're good all the way up to club racing. So I think they're gonna provide me, at the pace that I'm probably gonna be riding, plenty of grip. So obviously this is the rear, and let's see what we got. And da-da-da, here's the front. Oh, that's just so cool. I don't know if you guys are a nerd like me, but just seeing slicks like that, it just makes me feel like I'm in a paddock and I'm getting ready to go race. I'm a nerd, what do you want? All right, so let me get rid of this box. I'm gonna bring you guys closer and let's go over some of the paint stuff. Okay, so these are the supplies that you need to paint some fairings. It's quite a few things, but if you're gonna do it, you want the paint to stick, you want it to be on there for a while, so do it right. If you're gonna use rattle cans, make sure it's decent paint, and if you're not, make sure it's decent paint as well. Summit Racing has some great paint. It's very inexpensive when it comes to paint. Like, you can get a gallon of really good hot rod paint for about 200 bucks there, and it's about $500 other places. So I work there, so obviously I like the place, but I'm just saying they do have some really good deals. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna sand down everything. All the fairings need to be sanded, all the rough edges need to be cleaned up, all this smooth surface needs to be scratched. You're like, why? It's smooth, wouldn't paint just go on and look smooth? No, what would happen is your paint's gonna come off. So basically, what you want to do is you want to sand. You want to get this surface lots of nice little tiny scratches all over it. And while you're doing that, you're taking down high points and you're kind of overall smoothing the whole surface out. But the important part is those scratches. So for this first sanding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 400 grit. 320 to 400 usually is pretty good. It's not a big enough grit where you're going to get like massive scratches in your surface, but you're just going to get enough in there that it's going to help hold the paint. So why do you want to do that, you ask? Well, here's the thing. If you just sprayed paint on here, it's a smooth surface. So like if you're going 200 miles an hour or something bumps against it, what's holding that paint to that smooth surface? It's just the chemical bond of the paint to the surface. And that can be strong and it can last, but chances are it can fail. So when you go ahead and you sand this, you're basically almost doubling the surface area underneath the paint. So that way when you spray your primer, which will be your first layer, onto the surface with all those scratches on it, the paint soaks into all those scratches and becomes almost fingers into your surface. And then the top of it is self-leveling. So when you spray it, it goes on, it fills all those surfaces, the top flattens out. And now you have a chemical and mechanical bond of the paint to your surface. And that's hugely important. It's what allows things to flex, because these fairings are not super hard, they're flexy. So if you don't have that mechanical bond and chemical bond, chances are if you flex it too much, your paint's gonna come off. So it's a huge important step. So like I said, we're gonna start with between 320 and 400 grit and do that. So after you have all the fairings sanded and you're happy, we're going to use I always use the same thing. It's the spray away glass cleaner. One thing about painting, when you find something that works, always repeat it. So I've used de-waxers, I've used degreasers and all these other agents, and sometimes I'd get orange peel, sometimes I'd get other problems. For some reason, this spray away stuff, which is supposed to leave no residue, and I think that's why it works. So in between, anytime I do anything, if I'm sanding, I'm painting, I'm wet sanding, anything, when it's done, I hit it with spray away, wipe it off with a nice new microfiber cloth, and that way I know that there's nothing on that surface that shouldn't be there. So remember that. So after we get that done, the first thing we're gonna do is we are going to shoot primer. And primer is very important for several reasons. One, it primes the surface. It's a thicker paint, it's a buildable primer, so it's gonna go ahead and add a little bit of thickness to your surface, which is enabling you to sand it down and make it smoother. On the belly pan of this bike, on the fairings, it has Nomex on the inside, and the way they pressed it together and stuff, you can kind of see the lines on it. So as the primer builds up and fills in those lines and then we sand it down, it's gonna get rid of all that and make it a very smooth surface. Now I chose a white epoxy primer. It's a two-stage primer, so you have the primer itself and then you have a catalyst. So it's almost like a two-part glue, which again makes it really, really strong. And so we're gonna go and shoot that. And the important part is it's white, because Kawasaki green is a very bright color. And if you don't have a nice bright substrate, you're not gonna maybe get the pop that you want out of that color. So, all right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna hit it with the epoxy primer. We're gonna do a tack coat, which is a very light coat. It's just adding little speckles of paint and stuff to your canyons. You're gonna let that flash for about 15 minutes, and then we're gonna go ahead and do our first flood coat. And that's still not a super heavy coat, it's just, you're gonna flood the whole area, keep it as a nice, light, but smooth, and we're gonna let that sit for 15 minutes. Then we're gonna go back and hit it with a third, smooth, kind of a little bit more, but not crazy flood coat. And then we're gonna let that cure overnight. After we let that cure, we're gonna go back to sanding. Now, I don't have it here because I have to buy it yet, but at that point, I'm switching to a 600 grit sandpaper. We'll check the primer after we sand it and see, does it look okay? Are the low spots filled? Overall, are we happy with the smoothness of the surfaces? If not, we're gonna mix up a little more and shoot 1 or 2 more coats of primer and do it again. Now, if you were doing a hot rod or some kind of a show car or something, there's all kinds of things like guide coats where you spray a light black coat over it, and then when you sand, you can see what you're doing. But these are track fairings. We are just gonna get them looking good and putting them out. I'm not going through all that. So all you professional painters that are like, hey, you're skipping this, you're doing that, these are track fairings. We're just trying to get them looking good and on the bike as quick as possible. So now that we have our bike primered and it is ready to go, and we have it sanded down with 600 grit and it's ready for the next stage, you wanna look and see what your paint design is. On this design, it's only 2 colors. It's Kawasaki green and then a metallic black. And so, yes, the green can go over things or the black can go over green, but you wanna think about how you're gonna lay these paints. And if anything is gonna overlap, you always want the darker color last. So we're gonna start with the green. And so Summit did not have Kawasaki green as far as I could tell. So I went ahead and I bought it from Custom Paints. So this is Kawasaki 777 Lime Green, and it's 1:1. So this pint will actually turn into 2 pints when I add the reducer to it. And so we're gonna shoot that, and we're gonna get a nice, same thing as we did with the primer. After we sand with 600 grit, we're gonna go ahead and shoot a tack pass and just give it a little bit of tooth with the paint, let it flash for 15 minutes. Then we're gonna hit it with our first coat, let that flash for 15 minutes, and then hit it with the second coat. And then we're gonna let that dry overnight, if we're not in a rush. If you want to, you can let it dry for an hour. Because these paints need catalysts and reducers and things, they tend to dry pretty quickly. You could be sanding within an hour or 2. But for me, I like to just go ahead and take my time, clean the gun between stuff and everything like that. So we'll let it go overnight. Again, assess and see if we need any more coats. But on something like a nice smooth color like that, 3 to 4 coats is usually pretty good. So we'll see how that turns out. So All right, so now the bike's gonna be green on all the places that we want it to. If there's a huge section that's gonna be black, I'd probably tape it off, and that's why I got some of this 3M tape. Watch your masking tape when you're going to tape stuff. A lot of the cheap tape leaves residue, it doesn't work, the edges don't work that good. And for like $4 or $5 extra bucks for quality masking tape, when you're doing a whole paint job, it's definitely worth it. This 3M stuff is great. If you clean it and press it on and really press that edge down, it gives you a really sharp, clean edge. So I can't recommend this stuff enough. So after we do that and we figure out where we want our other color, which is this is our black right here, our metallic black, we'll go ahead and tape it off. We'll get some newspaper, tape off all the green areas that we don't want any overspray or anything else going on, and then we'll go ahead and shoot our metallic black on the places that need that. Same process. We're gonna go ahead and sand the green with 600 grit, and probably wet sand it, give it some tooth where we need to go over with the black. Same process, a little bit of a tooth, first coat, second coat, let it go, and then see where you're at. Most of the time, in my experience, 2 to 3 coats is usually enough, especially for a track bike where you don't want to add a ton of weight. So, and then after that, what we're gonna do is let everything dry well for a couple of days. And then I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna get out my 600 grit sandpaper again. You're like, what? Yep. We're gonna get out the 600 grit sandpaper and we're gonna wet sand the entire thing. We're gonna, all the colors, very gently, very nicely. Any dust nibs are gonna get taken out. Any weird little anomalies and stuff should be able to be taken out by gently wet sanding it with 600 grit. And again, we're giving it some tooth. We're gonna give it a mechanical advantage when we go to the clear coat, which is right here. It's a high solid urethane clear coat, and this is a 2-part, so it needs a catalyst and even a thinner, some thinner if you want, so it can be, you know, actually 3-part. But all this information's on the back of the cans. I guess I didn't mention that before. When you get into automotive paint, it'll tell you what you need. So for instance, the primer is 1-to-1. It's 1 part primer to 1 part catalyst. Something like the urethane could be 4 parts urethane to 1 part catalyst to 1/8 part reducer. So again, you don't have to think about this stuff. It's all on the back of the cans. And once you get used to using automotive paint, you almost kind of know what's going to happen. Like if it's a single stage color, it's going to just need thinner. If it's something like a clear coat where you need a catalyst, then it's usually 4-1-1, etc., etc. So we wet sand the whole bike. We go ahead and mix up our clear coat, and it's the same process again. You're going to shoot a tack pass. You're going to shoot your first coat and let it flash. And then you're gonna go back and shoot a second coat, let it flash. Now, if this was a show bike or something really interesting, clear coat can get crazy. You can let it flash, dry, sand that down, do 2 or 3 more coats, sand that down, then hit it with a flood coat. Let that completely dry, sand it with like 800, then 1200 grit sandpaper, and then get out your buffer and make it a glass finish. And that's where you get that, you can look into the paint kind of thing, which I've done on a couple of the other bikes. But again, this is a track bike. We just want it shiny and the paint not falling off. So that'll pretty much be it. Then after that, you have your option of throwing graphics on it, etc. I went a little crazy and I bought me an entire set of Kawasaki graphics from Graves Racing, and it's made for their street bike. Same year, but it's for a street bike, so I'm not sure all of it's going to fit, but a lot of it will. And of course, you can always cut and do, but it's going to really shape it up and make it a really cool looking race bike. I also have some race numbers coming. I mean, I'm going in. If you're going to have a race bike, you might as well have a race bike. How do you apply all this paint, Steve? You talked about all this paint and stuff, and then you're not using the spray can, so what are you using? Well, what I am using is this guy. It looks like your standard paint gun, but it's not. It's an HVLP turbine sprayer. So you can find these guys all over the place. They're like a hobby grade sprayer. It's made by Fuji Spray. They have a Semi-Pro 2, Semi-Pro 3. You can find them. I think I paid 250 bucks for this one a bunch of years ago, and I've used it a million times and it works flawlessly. And basically what it is it has a whole bunch of basically like vacuum cleaner motors in it. They're called mini electric turbines. And so they go, and what they do is they end up outputting a nice constant 5 to 7 PSI for you. These guns are designed to use that low air pressure, but then here's the really cool part. There's no water involved. Because the electric turbines actually heat the air up, it dries it out as it comes through your lines, so you don't have to worry about any kind of a moisture collection system or anything like that, where if you have a compressor, that's a huge concern. Also, oils from the tools can sometimes suck back into your compressor, and any kind of a thing like that can mess up your paint. So all this machine does is blow out warmish air at 5 to 7 psi with nothing going into it. So you're always getting clean air. And these guns are pretty simple to set up since you have a constant air pressure. You just kind of open them all the way, and then you tune your fan by adding how much paint you want and what size fan you want. And the cool part is I use a little bit of paint thinner or gun cleaner, and I set my whole spray up using a piece of paper on the wall before I ever put paint into it. So I make sure my gun is completely set up, ready to go. It's shooting how I want it to shoot. Well, you can even use water if you want, but when you're using the chemical in it, you're making sure that you're not leaving anything in your gun. So once you have it set up and sprayed, you just follow the directions on there, and it's just like using spray paint, but better. You throw the hose over your shoulder, you make nice smooth passes on your thing. You want to overlap about halfway on each thing. You want to keep your spray smooth. You don't want it spraying too much because that's how you get runs. One of the things I was talking about before, by giving the paint tooth and by using lighter coats, you won't get runs. Runs happen when that paint has nothing to adhere to, or you lay too much and it just comes down. But if you're giving it that tooth and you're giving it those lighter coats to begin with, the paint will adhere to itself a lot better and avoid runs. But if you do get a run in between one of your intermediate coats, say you're on your second coat of the color, well, if you see a run there, then stop, wait, let it cure, wet sand that run out, and then do your next coat the next day. So that's it. It's pretty much, once you get used to it, it's pretty simple. You'll just see, if you ever get the chance and you get going with painting, you'll end up going back to it. And here's the other thing. When you're done and you get your paint job and you're looking at it and you know that you did it, there is nothing more satisfying. There were times when I was painting a 15 color helmet and I was at my wit's end because it takes a lot of work, all the masking, all the things that you have to do. But I'll tell you what, man, when I finished it, the sense of pride, and when I handed it to the guy that paid me to paint it for him, and he was like, oh man, this is stoked. And to this day, I still see him posting pictures, racing his Spec Miata and doing stuff, and the helmet still looks great, and it's still holding up, and it's doing all the things. I still get a sense of pride. So learning how to paint is not the worst thing, and if you do it with a turbine sprayer, your initial investment is not too much. Like I said, I think I have $250 into the sprayer, and it came with its own gun. This is an aftermarket gun that does a couple things a little bit better, but I think this gun was $200. So if you wanted to go into it all in, you're looking at $450 for your materials that you're going to use 1,000 times. And don't forget, when your riding mower gets a little crappy and it's starting to look a little beat up, a little sandpaper or Trip to Tractor Supply, getting yourself some industrial paint, looks brand new. So the thing is pretty useful. You can spray lacquer, you can do woodwork with these things, you can do whatever. So it's not just limited to motorcycles, cars, etc. So it's an investment that kind of pays for itself, realistically. All right, so this was an intro to everything. I'm gonna go ahead and get sanding. I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna do a whole video. I'll show you all the stages, but obviously that's not gonna be one day. So I'm gonna build that over the course of time. But I thought I'd give you guys an intro to this and show you what I'm using, what I'm doing. And I can't wait to see this bike done. I can't wait to get it on the track. All right, if it works, it ain't dumb. We'll see you on the next one.